What is going on, everybody? This is Pascal. I am here with another video. This is going to be kind of the starting of a series that I've been trying to get off the ground for a little bit. Been kind of hard with school and stuff, but yeah, so introduction to using some basic Linux commands. I am going to, at least with each video, try to go more in depth into whatever specific command it might be that day. So today is just going to be some basic commands that you might see in Linux. Could be some that might be very useful for, I don't know, carrying out maybe some of the bandit commands, or the bandit challenges. And later on, though, I'm probably going to go more into maybe how to use the find command, how to use the grep command, and kind of, in this video at least, I'm going to give you some resources to use to maybe if you wanted to look into those commands yourself, how to figure out how they work and whatnot. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So I'm using just a basic basic Kali install currently. This isn't a fresh one, of course. This is what I've had for a couple weeks now. If you've just installed Kali, you may notice that it's using a non-root user default. This one doesn't have that, so some of the commands that I run in here may not be having, or may not require sudo command and sudo use. I don't think any of the commands I'm going to be running today require sudo use, but I may be using this similar setup for later on. I may actually update it to that version just so I have something currently with what people have. But anyway, I'm going to first explain for Kali here. As with most Linux distributions, you will notice that there's a user interface. A lot of people think when they hear Linux, they're like, oh my gosh, it's just terminal, it's just a command line, and that's all I have. Well, there's more to it than just that. There's a lot of times for very popular distributions, such as Kali Linux, such as Ubuntu, Red Hat, you'll notice that they have user interfaces, or they have display managers, window managers, and they have interfaces such as this is called XFCE. You'll probably, for Ubuntu, you might be more familiar with ones called GNOME. Those are just specific styles of user interfaces that you'll run into, and you can interchange them. That's one cool thing about Linux, is that if you don't like the way that your environment looks, like you don't like how this is kind of got a menu thing up here, you'd rather prefer having a sidebar, and you don't like how this is, you can reinstall how the interface looks. And that's for another video. That's not what's going on in this right now, but that's just kind of the down low on how you might, perceive Linux. They're starting to get more user-friendly, essentially, is what I'm getting at. So with many of the things that you can do without using the terminal, but that's not going to fly for what we're doing. We're going to be using the terminal a lot, and so you might as well sit back and get comfy with it, because it ain't that hard, but it also is going to take a little bit to put some effort into actually learning it. So first off, if you're in Kali, the main shortcut to actually get to terminal you can use with Control-Alt-T, and that'll go ahead and load you into a terminal emulator. You can also get to this using terminal emulator up here, or through using this button right here. I'm going to go ahead and full screen this terminal. We can actually even make it fuller screen with F or FN if you have function keys, or just F11. That'd be FN plus F11, or just F11 if you don't have function keys. That's not important, it's just something I like. So what you're given here is a shell. It's very blank, very bland, there's nothing there. There's a thing that says root, there's a thing that says Kali. I'm going to go ahead and actually increase the size here. It's a little easier to see. So what we have here is our username. We have our host name for our computer. And this is effectively saying the user of this machine called Kali, and then this is going to be our current directory. If we were, say, in so say we're in user share, it'll show our directory right here as user share. or USR, sure, sorry. I'll explain what these commands are in a second. So this is going to be just showing your current directory. Let's just show the current status of your shell. Pound symbol means that you have full root permission, that you can execute. You're basically God on the machine, and we're root. So if I want to make a new user, so I believe it's user add, and then add Pascal. Oh, Pascal already exists. So Pascal, looks like he only has shell. So I can actually do bash. And now I'm a bash user. So I'm now Pascal at Kali. And I have basic root or basic user permissions. It's denoted with the $sign next out of this. And yeah, so that's kind of what you're looking at here. It's a lowdown of what's going on. The shell type that you're using is called bash. Bash stands for born again shell. Spelled out like that. And the born again shell is a revamped version of shell, or just sh. And as you notice, you can run commands and all that hullabaloo in here, just the same as you would in bash. It acts a little different though. Bash has some extra things that you might want, like color or the way, because you can do scripting, you can do what's called shell scripting, and you can have it specifically be interpreted by bash, which can carry out alternate types of statements. This isn't a bash scripting video, but I can definitely go into that later. So, here in this command, you are dropped into here, you want to figure out what is up with your environment, where am I at? So first off, I want to figure out where I am in the system. So I do pwd. This is called the present working directory. Pwd tells me I'm in /root. This is as opposed to saying if I'm in user share wordless. And even though this tells me where I'm at, I can do pwd and I can find this here. This is especially useful if you're in a home directory, such as this, and I'm in a few documents deep. I want to figure out where I am. So I see I'm in documents IDA IDS with respect to tilde, or my home directory, but I don't know where I am in respect to the / or the root of the file system. So I can do that with pwd, and it gives me the exact absolute path of a certain directory of where I'm at. I can also do this for a specific file. So if I know a file that's in here, such as IDS names, I can do pwd IDS names. Oh, well, never mind. I guess you can't do that. I thought you could, but we can actually figure out what all it can do using the man command. So I'm going to go back to my home directory using the cd command, which changes directories. That's what it stands for, cd. That's all it does. And then say I want to figure out what pwd does. So I'm using the man command, which man command specifically is a command which pulls up manuals on any command or any C command that is in Linux. So I'm going to do man pwd. Man pwd comes up with, the name pwd, print the name of current working directory. I can print the full file name of a current directory or current working directory. And then there's some options I can add, such as have it use pwd from environment, even if it contains symlinks. Those are just files that point to other files. Or I can avoid all of them. Or I can ask for help and version. So let's try the help flag. So do pwd help. And it shows me those commands in a shorter output. The main command is probably one of the most useful commands in this entire machine, I would almost argue. While it doesn't do anything super special, as in doesn't compile things, it doesn't actually run the system, but it'll help you know and understand how to use the system. So let's say I want to learn how to use the command ls. And the command ls. ls I can just run. Well, and it looks like it shows me some things, but I don't know what they are. I can't tell if it's a directory or if it's a file or if they're photos or what they are, you know, because there's no extensions, there's no file type, there's no nothing. Well, let's figure out what ls does. We can do this with the man ls, and we see that there's a list directory contents, so it shows you the name ls and it tells you it lists the directory contents. There's a more in-depth description of it. There's also some options we can do. Some favorites I would pick out of here are, first of all, the long format, or the long listing format, -l, and then -a, which is the all. So it's do not ignore entry starting with dot. I'll explain why those are important in just a second. But we can keep scrolling through here, and we can see there are definitely way more flags than what we're going to be playing with, and you can use all of these to your advantage. Some of these, which I have found interesting before, are ones like the h command, or the lowercase h, human readable. We'll notice when we use ls-l to look at all the directories, or all of these contents of this current directory, it'll show you this number, 4096. Usually this means it's the size of the file or the directory, but that's in bytes. And sometimes it's hard for people to process, especially if it's huge. It might be like 150,000 bytes. But how much is that? What is 150,000 bytes? Well, so you use the h command, or the -h function, or a flag, I should say, with whatever flags you want. It'll allow you to stack them so you can do whatever amount of flags you want. And we'll print it out, and it shows us it in human readable format. So we'll see it, each of these folders is 4 kilobytes, specifically. Let's look at this, what we're looking at here. So the ls-l shows a long format, and it specifically is our read, write, and execute permissions, the group of the file, the user who owns the file, the size of the file, and then the creation date, or at least last updated date. And then as well as the name of the file or directory. The directory, we know if it is a directory actually, due to this D flag, or D parameter. A normal file such as Apple here is denoted with just a dash, so there's no D there, and therefore it's not actually a directory. If we want to look at for hidden files, which the -a is really good for, actually I'm going to go back to our output here. We have Apple, but say I also want to make a command, or make a file called .apple. So I'm going to echo something to a file called .apple. So .apple should be something that is now there. We can actually use the cat. So echo command, echo will actually just echo it. And then this triangle, or caret, side caret, is redirecting the output of that into the file called .apple. And then we can actually try to use cat to open the contents of .apple and output it to our console. And we see it says something. But let's look, is it in the directory? Oh, shoot, giving away my secrets. But it's not. It is not there. We just see Apple. And if we cat Apple, that's not what we put in it. But we can use ls-la, which is long format, and list all files regardless of the dot. And now we can see .apple, which is right here, as well as any other of the hidden directories or files that are in our current directory. Notice how big the directory actually is. The amount of contents that are in there is so much bigger than what we saw before. For comparison, we have that. And it's definitely a lot bigger. Now, this is useful for understanding, some more situational awareness. So, ls-la, you might be like, well, where am I at? What can I write to? You can see what files are here, so maybe I can figure out where I want to go. So, I'm just going to do ls. Well, I want to go to my desktop. So we use that cd command again to change directory to go to my desktop. Use ls to figure out what's in the directory. Let's double check and make sure there's no hidden files. So I'm going to do either -a, or I can do ls-la to look at the extended format. And there's no hidden files. But there are, however, this dot and dot. And if we go back up to the parent directory, which we can do, actually, that'll lead into this conversation. So the dot is referring to the current directory we're in. The dot is to the parent directory. We can verify this, actually, because desktop here is one folder deep from our home folder. So our home folder, we can go cd tilde, and now we're back at here. Let's do ls. This is our current directory and what it looks like. Let's move to the desktop again. We're going to do ls dot. It's the same thing. We can also move to the parent directory by doing cd dot. And this is the same thing for wherever you are. So say you're in documents, IDA, and you're an IDS. So I want to move to my parent directory, which is IDA 7.1. So I'm going to do cd dot, and now I'm there. Say I want to move to documents, but I have this parent directory still. I can do cd dot, which puts me in IDA / dot, which puts me in documents. Now I'm in documents. So you can play around with this just to do some different traversal type stuff, moving around the system. It's very good to get used to that. You're going to be cding, changing directories a lot. The tilde specifically is your home directory. We can actually look at what that variable looks like. You echo tilde, and it outputs /root. The other variable that actually does the same exact thing is the $home. And you change this variable if you want to change both of these variables. So say you want to change where your home is, and I want to change it to, let's do export home equals temp. Well, I'm going to cd to my home. If I do pwd, which is our present working directory, we'll see that I'm in temp. Let's change my home back because I don't want to be in the temp folder. As much as I love that. Alright, let's export D. Alright. So we're going to cd home and clear. Alright, now you might notice that clear command. The clear command is really useful, especially if I'm trying to clear a console. Say I have a bunch of gunk. Use the cat command to open the file, and I'm going to actually open up dev random. This is just going to open up a bunch of junk, you'll see. And to stop this, I'm going to do Control-C. Back up that for a second. Control-C will stop any command usually. If you're running something in the terminal and it's running for too long, or you don't want it to run anymore, you do Control-C, it'll kill it. Unless it's running in the background, then you actually have to run a different command for that. So there's a bunch of junk on my screen. I want to get rid of it, I'm going to clear it off. So I'm going to run the clear command. Clears my terminal. Minus some junk over here, but that's some artifacts of just the terminal. But it's cleared. But now I can't scroll really. I can't scroll back and look at what my past history was, which is a big problem, especially if I've just ran a scan, and then now I'm clearing my terminal, but now I can't get that content back. So what's a good way of doing this? Well, let's go ahead and cat dev random again, Control-C, and I'm going to go ahead and do Control-L. Notice it did the same thing, but you can actually even check this with our scroll bar. It still didn't resize, it's still small. We can scroll up, and we can still see our stuff. We can see all our content, and not that this is useful, but if we had a nmap scan or something of use, we would still be able to see it. But now it resets the terminal to the line that we're writing at currently. This is so we don't destroy our content that we have generated, while also maintaining, a clean terminal. Another command you might notice is pretty useful, especially if you're on a network and you're trying to figure out, how do I figure out where I am in any network, or at least what my IP address is, and so on. So a very common way in most operating systems or most Linux systems to figure out your IP address is one of two ways. You can either do ifconfig, which will show your Ethernet device or your wireless device, and then your loopback, which is kind of like your local adapter. So this is going to be 127.0.0.1. This is how, if you wanted to talk to yourself, in some cases you may want to, and this might be explained more later on for specific topics. Normally you won't be using this for actual communications because you're going to be using this guy. This is your main adapter. It's not always called ETH0. Sometimes it might be called WLPS30, or might be called WLAN0, or whatever variant, depending on your interface nickname. This shows your MAC address right here, and then it shows your IP address, as well as your subnet for people who care about that. But this is important because this is your IPv4 address, and then it also shows a IPv6 address if you're on a network that does use that. An alternative way is we can actually use the IP command. IP, which if you just run the command, will show you some different ways you can use it. We can also run man again on it, and this will show, manipulate, routing, networking devices, interfaces, and tunnels. So this can actually do probably a little bit more than what we knew. And how do we figure what we can do with it? Well, we look at the different parts of the man page, different parts of the commands, command syntax, which it can go on. You can do a lot of things actually with the IP command, especially with your interface devices. For now though, we're just curious about our IP address. So we do IP adder. And that brings back our loopback again, as well as our Ethernet device. And then we see our IP address right here, as well as a /24. /24 is another way to denote the subnet. Again, not super important unless you're really wanting to make sure what subnet you're in. And then, yeah, and then it'll show your MAC address right here. And then, something where that might come in handy too is, especially if you're using something like Hack the Box or something that requires you to use a VPN, you will notice that there's another added device. Sometimes it's called TAP, sometimes it's called Bridge, or BR0, or TAP0. Those are going to be different devices that'll pop up there that aren't necessarily your normal devices. They're not like your Ethernet device. So I can actually test this by doing CD to my documents, and then my Hack the Box, VPN, and then I can open up another tab, and if I do ifconfig again, there's now a third device called ton0. Ton0 has an IP address of 10.10.14.63, and then this is the subnet mask for it. And then I also have a what looks to be a MAC address. Not that. No, this would be my MAC address. I don't know why it's labeled as inet6. I could be rereading that wrong, but usually it'll be like ether is what it shows up as, but deadbeef seems to be what my MAC address is, starting out with anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. Go back home using the CD command. And yeah, that's, for the most part, the commands that are going to be the most common that you'll see, at least for most command line traversals. It's going to be cat, ls, ifconfig, or IP adder, your, actually I didn't go into remove, let's do that, remove, so I have this file named apple. Let's go ahead and look up the man page for remove. Remove files or directories, or RM. Pretty self-explanatory. You can go into more of what these do. One specifically I'd like to point you to is the -R. You can remove directories and their contents recursively. This is important for removing specifically directories. We'll see that here in a second. So we see Apple, use the mkdir or mkdir command to make a sample directory. This is something to get rid of. So if we want to get rid of the apple command, or sorry, not the apple command, but the apple file, we do rm apple, and now apple is not there anymore. But if you run that same command on sample, it won't do anything. Even though if we run ls on sample, there's nothing in sample. So we have to do rm-r sample. And now we know sample is gone. So remove ifconfig /ip adder cat ls mkdir. And the list can go on and on for the different commands that are all in Linux. These are some basic ones to get started, and the cd command will add that in there. So feel free to explore more on your own. There's a multitude of them. If you don't know how to do something in here, maybe you want to figure out, how do I open up a file in Linux? How do I edit a file? Well, in the GUI there's gedit, but how do I do it in the terminal? So I might search up on the good old Google, might look at Firefox, and when I look up Firefox, I'll notice that there's a bunch of ones, different terminal text editors, all the way from Nano to Vim to Emacs. Personally, I would recommend Nano for beginners. Vim is, once you get used to it, a lot of people like Vim. I also know some people that like Emacs. Particularly, whatever one floats your boat, go with that. That one's going to be the one that you feel the most comfortable with, and that's going to help your workflow the best. Nano is a really good one to starting out and understanding how text editors work in the terminal. Say you wanted to create a file. So no file in here currently, there's just directories. We can check that by ls-l. We see it's just directories. I'm going to nano and then some file. So now we're in the nano editor, and I can add some text. Here is some more. Woohoo, ha ha ha. Okay. So this is just some text. You notice it's completely movable. I can't use my mouse necessarily, but I can move around with my arrow keys. In Nano, you save a file down here, which it tells you it's write out, or basically write to the file, with a $O. Caret represents a control, so you do Control-O, and then it'll ask you if the file name you want to write is this, and that is correct. So I'm going to hit Enter, and it says I wrote 3 lines. Now, I can do Control-X to exit. Any of these commands down here can be called, usually with Control, and this is just a matter of playing with it, learning the subcommands, and I can make a strictly Nano video later on of understanding how to use it, as well as Vim and Emacs if you would like later on. Just drop a comment in the video and we'll go ahead and make one. So Control-X, and now when we do ls, that file is there. And we can use the cat command, like we used before, to dump the contents of some file to the output onto a terminal. And there we go. So, again, these are some very basic intro commands. I'm going to go more in depth later on in some later videos. And if you do have any suggestions or anything that you would like to see, or maybe more in depth of generally how to use Linux, feel free to throw that in. That may not go into this video series, but it's probably going to go into one of the other videos. Would like to probably upload a video of how, or like what Linux is, as far as like the file structure, how it acts and differs from systems such as Windows or Mac. Probably making those later on, whether it's this week or next week, but definitely look forward to it. But without further ado, thank you very much, and hope to see you guys on Fridays. Don't forget to subscribe.